Yes, we are recording.
Thank you. Alexa, would you be able to read the housekeeping notes, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome committee members, liaisons, and members of the public to the Legal Services Trust Fund Commission's Homelessness Prevention Funds Committee meeting. Thank you for joining us. We are using Zoom with the goal to foster a more inclusive environment and effective meeting. If you would like to comment during the meeting, please use the raised hand feature. Please utilize this tool to virtually indicate that you would like to speak in order to help the chair facilitate the discussion. A friendly reminder that this is a video conference and to please be aware of your surroundings behind you. All Legal Services Trust Fund Commission and committee meetings will be recorded and posted to the State Bar website. Zoom captioning is available. To enable, select Live Transcript at the bottom of your Zoom screen, then select Enable Audio Transcription.
Thanks, Alexa. Jim, would you like to call the meeting to order?
Sure, go ahead and take roll.
All right, let me pull that up. Oops, sorry. Okay, Aklagi. Iskin.
Here.
Mahoney. Schreiber.
Here.
Meeker.
Here.
Okay, and then for our liaisons, is Selena here?
No, Lauren Klein here for LAC.
Thank you. And I see Laura Brown.
Here.
Wonderful. All right. And then for staff, I see Rocio, Shannon, Alexa, Esteban, and myself. Oh, and Melanie. I'm so sorry. All right. So next.
We have a motion to approve the minutes from May 12th.
So moved.
So moved. I'll second it.
Wonderful. So I will take the roll again. Aklagi. Iskin.
Yes.
Mahoney. Schreiber.
Yes.
Meeker.
Yes.
Hey, the motion passes.
Great. Well, that brings us to 4-1. I think you got a presentation, Jennifer, on that.
Yes. Before we do that, should we see if there are any members of the public to make public comment?
Right. Well,
There is
really?
one hand raised, yes.
Okay.
And I am allowing them to speak.
Good. How long is my time today? Is it 2 or 3 minutes?
Okay.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. Do I have 2 or 3 minutes today?
Take 3 if you need them.
Okay. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Reverend Frank Robinson, and I have been a complaining individual with the State Bar for a couple, 3 years now. And if you want to go to VanessaHolton.com, you can actually see a full case log out there of stuff that I've protested against her. Now, if you look at the John Eastman case, in his case, you're denying him any ability for attorney-client privilege, but in my case against Ross Heckman, you said attorney-client privilege applies, even though there is clear proof of a felony committed under his watch. So you may want to go back to Leah and tell her that now that Eastman and I are in communication, she may want to start putting together those State Bar Freedom of Information Act emails I've been sending to her. And you better tell her that San Rafael City Police, they probably better come up with $5 or $10 million on the lawsuit we're going to file against them for denying my civil rights for freedom of speech. And again, if you read the website, you'll hear that Vanessa Holton, when she was the general counsel, had the police department call me and threaten me with civil and criminal actions if I didn't take down a website. Now, you don't think that John Eastman's going to love to hear that? And boy, Matt Gates and Marjorie Taylor Greene, can you guys explain why you didn't suspend Eastman's license before you start trying to disbar him? Because now he's taken on a major case out of Washington that just makes you guys on the state bar look like idiots. And Leah is as incompetent because did she pass the bar or not? People say that she hired somebody. I don't know that's for real, but I know she never really passes her MCLEs. So how much confidence can we have in her ability to do anything? So read VanessaHolton.com, tell Leah I'm back and I'm coming for her hard. Tell her she better get some money and better get herself resigning before too long. Because if you read it, Vanessa Holton, when she was the general counsel, she accused me of making a website that doesn't even have a criminal statute against it, and yet she files a police report. How actually smart can the general counsel be if she doesn't know the physical laws of California? You guys really, really, really need to get your act together. You need to fire Vanessa, or excuse me, you need to fire Leah and get rid of Donna Sue and all that crowd. Because it's not just me that said this, is it? The Supreme Court of California told you guys get rid of her. But no, she sits there making way too much money and covers up criminal acts. Well, tell her her shit show is done and Eastman's going to come for her as hard as he can. All righty, you guys, you have fun.
All right, well, sounds like you have a problem with the disciplinary process, which is well beyond our purview here. But
I understand that, but it's just my way of passing on a new message to Leah. And if you guys didn't see leahtwilson.org, I posted a website, a video of the Eastman trial, which I know violates your guys' the state bar's rules, but since Leah's impotent to enforce any
Excuse me,
criminal statutes,
Chair Meeker, I'm
too
going
bad.
to, it's been 3 minutes, so I'm going to stop.
Okay, well,
Aw.
I got 2.5,
Yeah, it's
but
been 3 minutes. Can you remove the, oh, thank you.
yeah. People familiar with this guy? I don't know. Sounds like he may be complaining to other committees too. So I don't know. Do we have an obligation to forward this stuff to Leah, or she sounds like she's probably aware of this guy already? Do you think, Jennifer? I mean, or Duan?
Yeah, Jim, we can handle it on the back end, but he's allowed to make public comments as chair. You know, we can, you gave him for 3 minutes, he was allotted, and we can remove him, but yeah.
Okay, well, let's move on then to item 4.1.
Sorry, is there another public comment, Shannon?
There are no other public comments.
Okay, great, thank you. I will share my screen then and we'll get on with that. Okay, my name is Jennifer Zelnick. I'm a senior program analyst in the Office of Access and Inclusion. And this is agenda item 4.1 to approve the 2021/2022 to 2024 homelessness prevention HP3 grant reallocation process. So before I jump into the agenda, staff thanks SLOLAF or San Luis Obispo Legal Aid Foundation for making their written public comment about their desire to rescind their projection of unspent funds, which was indicated originally in staff's memo to be $85,000. First and foremost, staff support grantees spending down their own grants. And as you'll see later on, we've slightly amended our proposed resolution to give all of the grantees who projected having unspent funds on their HP3 annual evaluation one more opportunity to revise that number before finalizing the reallocation amounts. We'll also give all HP3 grantees an opportunity to voluntarily return funds. So just please keep that in mind. So today we'll talk about some background, then the reallocation process, the reallocation timeline, and proposed resolution. And I would encourage everyone to ask questions as they arise. Okay, so for background, the Budget Acts of 2021, 2022, and 2023 allocated $80 million combined in federal coronavirus state fiscal recovery funds for homelessness prevention legal aid to QLSPs and support centers for both formula and competitive grants. The commission made 75 formula and 23 competitive grants for HP3. Formula grants began on December 1st, 2021 and end on December 31st, 2024. Competitive grants began on January 1st, 2022 and will also end on December 31st, 2024. And below you'll see the statutory parameters for the HP3 funding. I'll just give everyone a minute to read over that. Okay. On March 24, 2023, the Commission approved Public Counsel's budget revision request for both its HP3 formula and HP3 competitive grants. And this included reducing both of those awards for HP3 formula from $2,600,319 to $1,433,183. And for HP3 competitive from $1,100,000 to $537,397. In other words, Public Counsel reduced their HP3 formula funds by $1,167,136 and their HP3 competitive funds by $562,603. As of December 31st, 2022, HP3 grantees left 23%, or just over $6 million of their first year of funds unspent. Additionally, 14 grantees spent less than 50% of their grants. Staff recommended reassessing spending in the summer of 2023 so that the committee could seek to reallocate funds by the end of this calendar year, if appropriate. And the goal of reallocating some HP3 funding would be to promote their use for homelessness prevention legal aid. As a reminder, no carryovers will be allowed after the grant ends.
So what happens to unspent funding at the end of the December 31, 2024 period?
Sure, because this is a federal grant, these unspent funds will be returned to the federal government. Great question. Other questions at this time? Okay. So staff collected each grantee's spending projections for the remainder of the grant as part of the second annual HP3 evaluation that was due in early July. The evaluation instructed grantees, and this is a direct quote, to enter the amount of HP3 funding for this grant that you anticipate remaining unspent on December 31st, 2024, the last day of the grant. If you anticipate spending your entire grant, enter $0. If you enter a number that is greater than $0, the Legal Services Trust Fund Commission may require your organization to reallocate that amount to other HP3 grant recipients this summer or fall. That would promote the full use of HP3 funds for homelessness prevention legal aid by the end of the grant period. As a result of that, 5 HP3 formula grantees projected underspending $889,512 combined by December 31st, 2024. Additionally, one HP3 competitive grantee projected underspending $85,000 by December 31st, 2024, and that would be Slow Laugh. If the committee and Legal Services Trust Fund Commission were to approve staff's recommendations, along with Public Counsel's reduced funding, there would be a total of $2,056,648 of HP3 formula funds and $647,603 of HP3 competitive funds that might be available for reallocation. This asterisk is just to indicate that, of course, at this point, only Public Counsel's funds are available for reallocation. These numbers could be reduced if the 6 organizations who projected underspending revise their amounts. As we've seen, SLOLAF has already done that. And they could also, these numbers could also increase if other organizations were to volunteer to return additional funds. And staff plan to email all HP3 grantees to invite organizations, once again, to voluntarily relinquish funds that they project will not be spent by December 31st, 2024. This is staff's proposed reallocation timeline. You'll see key dates for the committee and commission are highlighted. Today, the committee will recommend requiring HP3 grantees to return their projected unspent funds and recommend the overall reallocation process. On August 10, the commission will approve the reallocation process and requiring HP3 grantees to return their projected unspent funds. On August 14, grantees will be able to opt in to voluntarily relinquish additional HP3 funds. By August 18, eligible grantees will opt in to receive those additional HP3 funds. Staff will rerun the formula around the end of August in order to determine the amount of funding that grantees would receive. Grantees will have to affirm again that they opt in to receive these revised funding amounts. Then on October 20th, the committee will recommend the reallocation amounts and budgets. And then on November 9th, the commission will approve the reallocation amounts and budgets.
Will all of the reallocation be done by formula?
Yes.
Whether it's
Yes.
competitively sourced or formula sourced?
Great question. So there will be 2 separate formulas, and this will enable us to maintain the distribution of 75% of funds to formula grantees and 25% of funds to competitive grantees, as is statutorily required.
What will the formula be that we will use to redistribute the competitive money? Sorry, Chris, I didn't.
No, you're only stepping on my thoughts. I have the same question. So thanks.
I like that expression. So basically the formula will take into consideration the amount of funds that have been offered for reallocation, and then it will base that off of the percentages of the original awards. So it will be a percentage increase for grantees depending on what they originally had, is my understanding.
Wait, can I clarify that? Sorry, Eric, if you understood that or.
No, go ahead.
So is it a pro rata share of the opting in grantees prior
Yes.
allocations?
Yes.
So, okay. So potentially someone that, an organization that had received, let's say 5% of the competitive grant would, and if all of the grantees opted in on the competitive grant, they would receive 5% of the reallocated funds. Is that accurate?
That's accurate. Yes.
So
They did much better than I did.
So
I can answer any additional questions about the allocation process if you want me to, but it is, I think, Christian, the way you described it, that is accurate. And I do believe it's everybody who would opt in right now. I think it's at 4% is sort of so they would all get an equitable increase based on their original grant.
So, yeah, I think I understand that, but my question is, why would we allow someone who has been unable to spend their money to opt in to receive additional money?
That's a fair question. My understanding is that unless there was a serious concern that was brought before the commission, grantees have been awarded these dollars and they're entitled to participate in the reallocation process. However, that being said, staff will be sure that we check in with grantees about whom we have any concerns regarding their spend down of additional dollars, in order to make sure that they understand the process and that they understand that they still have to spend down by December 31st, 2024, and that the committee, the commission, the Judicial Council, and the DOF will be aware of their unspent funds, to basically convey the tenor of that decision.
So Jennifer, a follow-up on that. When they run the formula for LA County, is public counsel going to be included in that formula, or are they going to be excluded because they're giving up money?
Sure. So any grantee who gives up funds, whether public counsel or those we've identified in the memo, or anyone who would voluntarily give up funds, will be excluded from the formulas.
Okay,
Oh.
and we'll get in a written agreement from these organizations that they can handle the additional funds that they're going to get under the formula?
Sure. So like the HP2 formula reallocation, grantees will have to sign grant amendments that will have, all of that information included.
Wait, so, okay, now I'm a little confused. So public counsel will relinquish some money. I guess maybe what you're assuming that they're not going to opt in to receive additional funds since they're giving up money.
We would consider anyone who gives up money ineligible to participate in the opt-in.
Okay.
It wouldn't make sense for an organization to give up funds and then ask for more funds.
And just to emphasize the part that Jennifer mentioned, this is, voluntary opt-in, and a lot of this will be the TA of, if someone, for example, expresses a concern to be able to spend down and then, opts in and doesn't realize, what that might mean for them or what that would look like at the end of having additional funding that could have been distributed or reallocated to another organization that could have spent down. So that's where the TA comes in, and staff reaching out to grantees and ensuring that they understand what that opt-in means and the period by when they're expected to return the funds, and the impact of this is the end of the grant period. We won't be able to redistribute for a future cycle. Any unused funds will be returned, and just ensuring that we can ask any clarification questions. And then just to go back to Jennifer, that was great. Unless the commission has determined that someone is ineligible for these grants, existing grantees would be able to opt in for additional funds, and it would go through a formal process of essentially adjusting their current award through an amendment to their grant agreement.
Okay, but if an organization voluntarily relinquishes funds, either formula funds or competitive funds, do I understand correctly that they will be ineligible to opt in to receive additional funds?
Yes.
Okay.
So can I ask, I guess, a more like just practical question, or a question about a practical element of this? How much is raw dollar wise are we looking at? I guess because I have I guess I have concerns on the extremes. I'm not sure that it I'm not sure it changes the course here, but if it's $4,000, maybe that goes to an attorney's salary increase or something. If it's $400,000, are we going to materially change the expectation for outcomes or for services?
So that's a great question. And right now, the best that we can give in terms of an estimate is what was listed here. So roughly $2 million at this time, if we were to move forward today. What I would say is that as part of the reallocation process, grantees will need both those who relinquish funds as well as those who wish to accept additional funds will need to submit revised budgets. And with those, there is also a deliverable modification process. So the understanding is that Grantees would not be able, for example, to take on a substantial amount of money without offering additional deliverables. And that is part of the process. I didn't include it in this timeline because it's already a little bit on the longer side, but staff will handle all of that internally, and that will all be taken care of by the time we get to this October 20th committee meeting. So the committee will have staff's opinion on all of that at that point. Does that answer your question?
It does. Although, I mean, what I hear you saying is that the analysis of how the funds will be spent is a process that will take place after the commission has agreed that the money will be reallocated. So I do have a little bit of a concern, I guess, that there is a sort of a cart horse problem, because we're going to be agreeing to a reallocation, and that presumably will be set. And then we're going to learn how that money would be spent. And I guess then the question perhaps is there some authority that staff will have to deny the reallocation on the basis of the proposed use of the money?
That's a
Or is
great
that
question.
Is that a commission action later on? Because then it's just, I mean, and I realize this is sort of like a doom loop here, but I won't be, I mean, August 10th, we're going to take a commission action, and then like there's going to be more happening after that. So that's what
That's a good question. And so if we if the committee agrees to move forward with this recommendation to have the reallocation process and the commission approves, all of these grantees have already been found eligible for these grants. And so it's moving the work around, and staff would at that point be reviewing budgets, because they're both going out through formula, to ensure that the work and the expenses as proposed to be spent, the additional funding, would meet eligibility criteria. So that would be the additional step that then we would flag if anything wouldn't meet that formula kind of eligibility.
And this was also,
yeah,
just really quickly, this was also something that was done as part of HP2 formula reallocation. I think the big difference there is that we, because of timing, did not bring anything to the commission until it was time to approve the reallocation amounts and budgets. And we wanted to get the commission involved earlier this time.
I will want to respond to that, but I saw Heidi maybe before me. Sorry.
Well, the one thing I would just add is that it's part of the budget review, a process threshold. And so that right now, the grant increases that are based on the amount available would be 4%. So every grant budget would change only by 4%. So that budget evaluation is within the staff's approval ratio, and I would expect them to look for 4% increases at sort of in program deliverables. So nobody is increasing over a 4% level given the amount now. So it's sort of within the existing parameters of that budget review process, and that's in place already, if that helps clarify.
Yeah, that's helpful, because 4% isn't a lot. Although it could go up, I guess, if people
Well,
aren't
it'll go up
opting
proportionately if there's more money available. So if there becomes more money, then everybody would get a 6% or 10%, or you know what I mean. So it'll go up proportionally across the board.
Right,
So
but yeah, but that whether it's 4 or 14, it is quite material, and it could get to the point where we'd come back to the commission because it'd be outside of staff parameter.
Right. If it goes over the 25%, then it would come back for commission approval.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm not sure that this changes things, but just to respond to what Jennifer just said, the difference, I think, in HB2 and HP3 is that we actually had sort of HP3 backfilling HP2 in many respects. the work had been ramped up and there was sort of additional years of out year funding when HP 2 was winding down, and that money could like a program that saw unspent money coming had the bulwark of HP 3 behind it, so they could make hiring decisions knowing that there would be homelessness prevention work to do. This is a little bit different, and I think importantly, because this money goes away, it has to be returned, and there's nothing following suit. So the concern that I guess I'm seeing or raising is that if you're talking about 4%, and just to put it in sort of simplistic terms, if you've hired 1.5 attorneys to do this work and they're working, let's say, full-time or 1.5 FTE time on this work, you're essentially saying, hey, we're getting 4% additional money, therefore increase 4% your output or the services that you're delivering. But in fact, you're not hiring an additional 0.04 FTE. So that's on the one hand, it's hard to sort of see a comparable bump that's going to happen on the services side of things. Yet the alternative, which is, we hired this person at $75,000 a year and we're going to give them a 4% raise, feels sort of unsatisfying in a different way, because you're basically reallocating the money for salary purposes. And don't get me twisted here, like I'm all for legal aid attorneys making more, but that feels also unsatisfying, because that's saying, well, we're going to take this additional money, we're not going to increase services, we're just going to increase salaries. So I don't know, I guess I'm seeing some potential issues arising after the commission acts on August 10th. And
I think those are really thoughtful comments, which are appreciated for us to be able to answer any additional questions. I think that the committee can choose to change or adopt part of the staff's recommendation if there are certain pieces that don't necessarily feel comfortable. The idea behind it is knowing that we have at least some funds already that will not be used from public counsel, and hearing that there might be additional funds that will need to be returned at the end of the day, and hearing that some organizations may be able to spend those, trying to offer an opportunity to move those funds around within existing grantees so that we have less to return at the end of the day. But that being said, if there are certain parts of the staff recommendation that have, where you have concerns, there could also be like a partial, parts of it could be approved. We could just do the public counsel amount that already has been returned. So just wanted to kind of put that out there.
And
Well,
just,
go
go ahead.
No, Jennifer, please. Sorry.
Well, I would just add to that just to put a very fine point on it, the reallocation process involves opting in. So if an organization doesn't believe that they can take on additional funds to do additional work, they would not participate. And we did see that with HP2 as well. I understand that there are different funding sources and different requirements in that sense, but there were many organizations who did not opt in. And we did hear from some that did, that they specifically wanted additional funds because they had more work than they thought they would, or for various other reasons.
Well, so, and I think you are homing in on what I think is maybe the critical fulcrum here, and that is the number of opt-ins.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, the issue that arises is if everybody opts in, then the amount of a budget increase is going to be nominal. And I don't really see I guess I see a higher likelihood that we're going to run into the problems that I just described about, it's not big enough to really increase services, and it's unsatisfying to to not increase services and to allocate that money in a different way. And so that's part of the issue. If fewer people opt in, then what you are going to end up with is a much bigger bump to an organization that is in the situation that you're describing, which is we've got the staff, we've got the casework, the caseload, and we can immediately put this to use. So in some ways, I guess this is a communication thing, but I can't really imagine a program saying, I'm going to turn down 2%, but 2% across, 50 organizations doesn't really offer the same bang for the buck as that same pie being split among two, let's say.
Right.
And
And that's, oh, sorry.
No, that might just be a communication issue on the bar, from the bar to the organizations. Like, anyway, I guess I would encourage that type of realistic assessment.
Sure. I see, Jim, you have your hand raised, but just really briefly, we specifically have a 2-part opt-in process for that reason. That enables us to first determine how many organizations are interested at the lowest threshold of funds that they would receive. So they find out what amount they would receive if every single eligible grantee were to opt in. After that, we rerun the formulas with only those grantees who wish to participate. We then share that information with those grantees, and they need to affirmatively opt in again in order to determine that they're able to use those additional funds at that higher level. Hopefully that addresses part of your question. Jim?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, when the second part of the opting in, when they know how much they can get and they have to affirmatively opt in, at that point, are they asked, will you be able to increase your services with these additional funds?
We did not do that for HP2, but if that was something that is important to the committee, I think we could structure that into our communications.
Would that answer your concerns, Chris?
Yes. I mean, I guess I really am not trying to assume the worst here, but I do think, like, yeah, we want to, and everybody I think shares this view. We want to increase the services to an amount commensurate with the literally hundreds of thousands of dollars that are going to get pushed back into this pot. And that feels much more likely to occur if it's concentrated in a fewer number of programs. And so, yes, Jim, I think that's a step in the right direction.
That's helpful. Thank you. Eric?
Yeah, that was going to be my question, but now that I think about it, do we really need to require them to say that they're going to be increasing, that those who opt in are going to be able to increase their services by whatever the percentages of additional money they're going to get? I mean, what if they want to, I don't know, enhance one of their presentations or something, make it better. They may not show it to more people, but they have a better presentation on unlawful detainer, tenants' rights or something like that. I mean, why do we really have to micromanage it that much? Or just to continue the point, if we go down the line that Chris and Jim are suggesting, what is it that we're going to make them say as part of the opt-in exactly? That they're going to be able to increase their deliverables by whatever percentage increase they get through this opt-in process?
I wouldn't see it as a one-to-one necessarily, but I would be interested to know whether they were planning to increase their deliverables on the basis of getting the additional funds. I mean, I guess like the bigger question that leads for me is whether we have any discretion to say, if they answer that question no, then what discretion do we have later on to say, well, then you won't be receiving additional money? Because I take your point, Eric. I think that's right. It's possible that someone will respond to that question by saying, well, we hired, an attorney, it's a 2% raise or 4% raise, and for a particular organization, it's a $1,500 or $2,500. I wouldn't have the expectation that they'd be able to increase deliverables substantially. And if they hired an attorney at a cut rate, it would be appropriate, let's say, to give that attorney a $2,500 raise. Even. So I could see that scenario. I think the problem is if that scenario is replicated across all the money, then that's not I don't think that's maybe the optimal use of the funds.
Well, as I understand it, they have to submit a budget, revised budget, to show how they're going to spend that money. So there'll have to be some justification in terms of approving that revised budget.
Just add as a reminder, since these are formula grants and not competitive, or these would go out through a formula, not competitive proposal that would be reviewed. Budget, assuming the percent is within the threshold, that would be, self-executor staff approval. We wouldn't necessarily get into the weeds as long as it was eligible work. But also one thing I'll note is if there is a concern about the timeline, I think Chris, going back to one of, maybe I heard this, I don't know if I heard this correctly, about what between the step like now being proposed to you and what's coming up next, we could look at potentially lengthening the process. Knowing that we do have, the idea with this timeline was to be able to finalize additional funds going out, awards, so that they could be dispersed for the final year of the grant, early 2024, and have that full year to spend down in their pocket. But given that we have more time, more of a runway than we did with HP2, whose grant period ended at the end of this year, we could potentially extend that if that would make a difference. So just wanted to put it out there as well.
Rocio, correct me if I'm wrong, but if it's a budget, if it's a formula reallocation, then as long as we're within guidelines, we don't have much to say about their budget at all.
Correct.
The only thing that we could really get in there and critically evaluate what they're actually going to do with that money is on the competitive side. And in order to do that, we'd actually have to request proposals. We'd have to have the commission and staff go through and rank those proposals, and then be able to determine who's spending that extra money the best. And my understanding is that's less, what is that, about $800,000 on the competitive stuff? The big chunk is on the
Not
formulary.
even.
Yeah, and then just to throw, that's exactly right, Jim.
Oh,
and then
maybe.
just to throw the other kind of another point is these monies have been awarded. So unless the commission would make a determination that they are not being spent accordingly or underspending, and we require them to return them and reduce their award without the reallocation process, then we wouldn't necessarily have sufficient time to start a completely new release a new RFP and go through the competitive process, knowing that it would have to be a shorter grant period, like less than a year if we were to do that, knowing that the grant period needs to end by December 31st, 2024.
And
So
for
that's
less than
kind of that's why the staff is proposing the reallocation, knowing that that might be, given the timing and what we're hearing from grantees and knowing what's on the table in terms of underspending or return funds.
I mean, I don't really like shortening time for anybody because it seems like it jams staff, and it is a problem for programs. So I guess I don't really think that's great for anybody. I don't know. Some of this is a little bit hypothetical, I guess. But in that staff approval process, when they submit revised budgets, I guess I would say, I think staff should pay attention to this question of whether we are talking about an increase in deliverables, and then try to aggregate whether that is going to occur across, the full amount reallocated.
Would it be
It's a-
help?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
No.
Would it be helpful to try to collect that information and present that to the committee without necessarily making it a requirement, just so that it's knowledge for the committee?
For the full commission, you mean, or?
For both, we would do it first for the committee on the 20th of October, and then we could present that again on November 9th.
Well, yes, I think for sure the answer to that would be yes.
Yeah, I agree. Jennifer, I have a question, or Rocio, are competitive grantees who might be receiving additional monies not also required to submit revised budgets?
They are, yes.
They
So-
are, but I'm sorry.
And would those grantees go through the same, or would those revised budgets go through the same staff review process as for the formula grantees?
Yes.
Correct. And that is something we did check with our Office of General Counsel in terms of how we would be able to reallocate the competitive funds, and looking at, and so they came back and said that it does specifically state that they could be reallocated via formula, that any funds reallocate via formula for both the formula and competitive, which is why staff is proposing this process. And again, we don't have to reallocate. This is just an attempt to make better use, or ensure that the funds are spent, moved around as needed before the end of the grant period. But
We don't reallocate, we're just giving the money back to the feds, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And we know that we already have a substantial amount of money that has been returned.
And so this is a new process. HP2 was the first time we did this, knowing that we were in this unique situation of hearing. I think this again is a great thing, that we are hearing directly from grantees that there are these concerns, and we're encouraging this type of communication so that it's not after the fact we realize, oh, we have X amount that we now have to return, but trying to get ahead of it and see if there's an opportunity to move the money around for those that are able to spend it, to make better use of the funds before we get to that point.
Yeah, I think it's great that we're doing this, actually.
Yeah, just to be clear, I do too. I mean, it's so much better to spend it than to let it go back. But I just want to make sure that people aren't reflexively saying yes, organizations aren't reflexively just clicking the I'm opting in without a plan that is substantive, because I just think without visibility into the holistic outcome here of like $2 million or whatever going back into the pot, we run the risk of it being spent less effectively. Because the reality is, some organizations have proven to have, more serious challenges, right? Spending the money down, not just those giving it back, but others who were late to start or have had, have discovered staffing problems and think they're going to be rectified. I just would want to make sure. It's just hard for organizations to turn down money. I mean, I get it, but I think we want. Yeah.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead. No,
So
no,
I
no,
said
no.
we could work on the messaging. I think that was our approach, our attempt for HP2 reallocation, not just the messaging that went out, but then also the follow-up and TA, ensuring that organizations understood that for lack of a better way of saying this, it wouldn't be a good look if they took additional funds and then were unable, and had to return a big portion of them at the end of the day as well. So just understanding what the opt-in, the expectation is with the opt-in, and messaging that. And again, we do have the public council funds, so the committee could choose to just reallocate those, could reallocate, a different portion, could, we are proposing to also ask for others not currently listed in this proposal to opt in to relinquish additional funds. So we could do a portion of it if we think that, it's just the public council funds that we know absolutely we have to reallocate. That could be an option as well. Just want to kind of throw that out there.
I see Melanie and Lauren.
So not to throw a monkey wrench in this or anything, but I've just been on this subject, so here's my monkey wrench. Is there something that would prevent, or would this be something that the commission approves to be able to use the money on the new LRAP program?
The HP3 funds,
Yes.
they would have to be spent within the existing grantees, within the set parameters for this particular grant.
So I don't know if I know the answer, but anyways, that put it out there so people can think about that.
The parameters for the grant are at the bottom here, starting with eviction defense. So staff's reading would be that using those HP3 funds for LRAP would not be permissible.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Lauren?
I just wanted to offer up LAC's help in any way in terms of messaging this to programs. We're happy to help with that message about, the importance of the spending down of the money and not opting in if you can't spend it down. And I would just underscore what staff has already said, that there's, a broad range of programs, from programs that aren't able to spend all the money to programs that really do need more money to meet the need. So this, I think, is really positive to have everyone talking to staff and the commission this early, because I think that those funds really can get put to good use. And as is always the case with formula grants, we can't know exactly how the money is going to be spent, but I definitely have confidence in programs that if they're opting in for this, they're one of those programs that really does need more funding to keep this going, whether they're using it, in one way or another. So overall, I think this is very positive, and we definitely support the staff recommendation and are happy to help with messaging.
Thank you, Lauren. Are there other questions? Okay. Jim, should we look at the resolutions?
Sure.
All right. Should the committee concur with staff's proposal, passage of the following resolution is recommended. Resolved that the Legal Services Trust Fund Commission Homelessness Prevention Funds Committee recommends that the commission approve the 2021/2022 to 2024 homelessness prevention formula and competitive grant reallocation process as described in staff's memo dated July 26, 2023. And it is further resolved that the Homelessness Prevention Funds Committee recommends that the commission, require the organizations listed in attachments A and B of State Bar staff's memo dated July 26, 2023 to relinquish their projected unspent funds with amounts finalized by August 14, 2023. And the part that's in red and underlined was a change from the memo.
So do we have a motion?
Oh, sorry, one sec. So moved.
Is it clear from the memo that organizations that relinquish funds will be ineligible to participate in the reallocation process?
I think that we could add that in to the resolution if commissioners were so inclined.
I'm happy to take the friendly amendment to the motion.
Oops. Okay. Where should we put that?
Described in the memo.
Just at the end, I would just say organizations relinquishing projected unspent funds would not be eligible for grant reallocation.
Good, Chris, thank you.
So Jim, do you want to return to the vote?
Yeah, well, did we have a motion for it?
I will so move.
Okay, I'll second. So can I have a vote?
Yes. Oklagi, Iskin,
Yes.
Mahoney,
Yes.
Schreiber,
Yes.
Meeker.
Yes,
Motion passes.
great. That brings us to 4.2.
Yes, let me reshare my screen. Oh, sorry, started from the beginning. Okay, next we have agenda item 4.2, update on Coalition of California Welfare Rights Organizations. So as a reminder from last meeting, during the HP2 services review, we identified some questions about reporting with Coalition of California Welfare Rights Organizations, or CCWRO, for their HP2 and HP3 formula grants. The review raised questions for staff about how CCWRO tracks their HP2 and 3 activities separately. Additionally, staff had similar findings during CCWRO's May monitoring visit and based on a desk review of their HP3 formula grant. Staff are following up with CCWRO in several ways, such as providing ongoing technical assistance to the organization, providing findings through the monitoring visit letter, and reviewing their corrective action plan, which is part of their response to the HP3 desk review findings. Staff found that CCWRO complied with the request for a corrective action plan and await CCWRO's implementation of this plan. And that should conclude, for the most part, by August 15, at which time staff will make a recommendation if further action is appropriate, and will present to the HP Funds Committee at its August 31st, 2023 meeting. Additionally, through ongoing technical assistance with State Bar staff, CCWRO have agreed to return funds spent on work that staff deemed to be non-qualifying. CCWRO are in the process of determining exactly how much time was spent on those activities, and we'll report that to staff in the coming days. And we will also share those findings in August when they're finalized. I'm happy to answer questions.
I might want to just add for the rest of the committee, this particular organization has also been brought to the attention of the Eligibility Budget Review Committee. requiring a, what do we call it, a eligibility review conference. And since I'm on that committee, I served on that eligibility review conference. It struck me as this support center is fairly small. If I remember correctly, Jennifer, there are only about, what, 5 FTE in the organization, some of which are new. They're also used to having a fairly small budget of under $500,000 from equal access funds and IOLTA funds. This is the first time they also had additional funds like HB2 and 3, and that they just didn't have the monitoring capabilities, which they seem to be having now with the extra technical assistance they're getting. They're doing a better job of tracking their hours. And so I just wanted to let people know that I let them know that we were really concerned about their reporting problems because of the HP3 being federal monies, and that we're under extra scrutiny of those. And they seem to be on board. At least that was my impression, Jennifer. What, were you seeing any things different?
I think that's a fair assessment, Jim. Thank you for providing those details.
So
LAC has also reached out to the organization to provide additional technical assistance where appropriate and support, and they've been very open to hearing from us and improving those reporting and tracking of time practices.
Thank you.
So no further questions. We could go to 4.3.
Okay. Agenda item 4.3 is to provide an update on HP3 grant administration, and I'll be joined by my colleague Esteban later on for this. There are 2 topics: an update on HP3 grant administration deadlines and an update on the HP3 desk audits. So in terms of deadlines, each year, HP3 grant recipients must submit an annual evaluation. This year's reporting period was July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023. Grantees have 1 month to complete the annual evaluation, which is housed on Smart Simple and consists of narrative questions, tables, and a data collection tool. The annual evaluation includes detailed instructions, and staff also host a webinar in order to help grantees complete it. After the deadline to submit the HP3 annual evaluation, State Bar staff then have 1 week to clean the data from, excuse me, one of the collection tool tabs about attorney-client relationships and report this information to the Judicial Council, who then reports to the Department of Finance. This year, 6 grantees submitted late HP3 annual evaluations, but all of the late grantees submitted their evaluations by 5 o'clock p.m. on the following business day as requested. Importantly, 1 grantee, Legal Services for Seniors, submitted their HP3 annual evaluation on time, but the data collection tool was formatted incorrectly to the point that their data was essentially unusable. As such, their report was substantively incomplete. Staff provided technical assistance to help them try to resubmit before sending the data to Judicial Council. Legal Services for Seniors worked really hard to submit a correctly formatted data collection tool with the information needed, but unfortunately the tool contained data from several grants, homelessness prevention and otherwise, and Legal Services for Seniors agreed that it overcounted their HP3 work. As such, staff submitted the collated data to Judicial Council, excluding that provided from Legal Services for Seniors. However, staff continued to follow up with LSS to provide additional technical assistance, and they submitted a revised tool early the following week, which was then added to the merged tool at the request of Judicial Council. Of note, Legal Services for Seniors underwent significant staffing and leadership changes during the same 30-day period as the HP3 annual evaluation. They have a new executive director and at least 1 new attorney working on HP grants, excuse me. And we've been really happy with how responsive and dedicated Legal Services for Seniors has been to ensuring that all of their data that they collect is accurate and that they're logging it in their CMS in ways that makes reporting easier moving forward. Besides submitting the HP3 annual evaluation to the Judicial Council, staff continue to provide Judicial Council with quarterly reports about the quarter's services, as well as the previous quarter's total spending and spending on full scope unlawful detainers in particular. Staff are also preparing to begin work on the annual HP3 report, which will ultimately be filed with the Department of Finance. And I'm happy to answer any questions about this. Okay, then I think I will pass the baton to my colleague Esteban from our fiscal team and ask him to introduce himself and walk us through our HP3 desk audits.
Thank you, Jennifer, and hello, everyone. My name is Esteban Cano Gutierrez. I'm a senior financial analyst here at the Office of Access and Inclusion. And as Jennifer mentioned, the idea is for me to provide a quick overview and a status update on the HP3 desk review process. So as you all know, all HP3 formula and competitive grantees will undergo a desk review during the grant period. And as part of the LSTFC oversight responsibility, the staff administer a risk assessment to the 78 organizations that receive HP3 formula and or competitive grants. Of the 78 organizations, 32 organizations were classified as high or medium risk agencies. And these 32 organizations were prioritized for desk review first. When possible, the remaining low risk agencies desk review will be conducted as part of the agency's regular monitoring visit. And the desk review have been conducted by the fiscal staff of the Office of Access and Inclusion.
What is it? What do you mean by high risk? What does that mean?
So we actually, the fiscal staff provided a grant management assessment to the grantees for them to complete. And we completed internally a separate grant management assessment. And based on those answers provided on the 2 GMAs, we calculated and score and categorize those agencies as high, medium, and low risk agencies. So the risk parameters determine if the grantee is able or not to comply with the federal grant requirements, meaning if there is a high risk for them to not comply with those requirements, then they will be categorized as high risk agency. And yeah, same for the other ones. Does that respond to your question?
Yeah, I guess.
Devon, could you maybe provide a couple of examples of what would make someone put someone in the high risk category?
Sure. What do you exactly do you mean by that? I'm sorry.
Oh, just in terms of like those that we have prioritized to complete the desk reviews for. What are some like common things that we were like testing for or looking for that put them into that high risk category?
Sure. So this actually when we did this, categorization, I was still not working with the state bar. So maybe I don't know if Heidi is here with me and she can help me maybe answer this question.
I figured it comes better.
Absolutely, no.
I totally stepped in, but sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. Heidi, do you want to?
Sure, I'm happy to step in since I was the one who oversaw this process. The risk assessment. So as a federal pass-through agency, we are required to conduct a risk assessment to kind of categorize any grantees who may be at risk of not being able to comply with the federal requirements. So we sent out what we call the GMA, the Grants Management Assessment, to all grantees, and that basically had grantees respond to internal controls questions, sort of whether or not they have the capacity to track grants by activity or expenditures by activity, whether they had experience with federal grants, their audit, whether they're single audit grantees and things like that. They're just sort of kind of basic internal controls of federal requirements. we also simultaneously did our own internal grant management assessment of sort of various things that we determined in-house would help predict whether or not a grantee was in a good place to administer federal grant funds. And so based on those scores, we compiled a weighted score based on, prioritizing certain criteria within those assessments, and came up with a scoring for each grantee that put them either in high risk, low risk, or medium risk. And so those grantees that were high risk were prioritized first for additional technical assistance and desk review monitoring at the front end. So if you have additional questions on that, I'm happy to sort of go through that with you.
Yeah, I got one question on that. Did you see any patterns? Like I would assume that those programs that are LSC funded are probably low risk. Those programs with larger budgets, are they
Not
lower risk?
necessarily. I think that I didn't obviously look at it from a rubric, but I do believe we do have some LSC funded organizations that were that may have been high risk. It really was, it was each individual organization.
So this is a federal thing?
It's a requirement of being a pass-through agency for federal funds, yes.
We don't do this risk assessment for our state grants for IOLTA and EAF and all that.
We have historically not done that. I know at prior meetings that there have been sort of some indications that maybe that you would like it to be wider spread, but that or the commission, not you specifically rather, but it's not currently a requirement of our state bar funds.
I'm wondering why
regular monitoring visit, and then just for the 2 federal grants that we administer, the HB3 and Cal HFA are the ones that we do this added step specifically for those grant funds. That's required for the federal requirement.
I'm wondering why we would give any money to a high risk organization.
Well, so the parameters of high risk in terms of as the federal government gives it, it just means you have to, you may want the remedies for a high risk organization are, requiring additional requirements in the grant fund, requiring corrective actions, providing more technical assistance. A high risk in the auditing terms, it's not necessarily we think you're going to go over and steal the money. It just means they may require additional technical assistance so that they know what, like the organization we were just discussing, they did not have the infrastructure necessarily in place for administering federal grants. So they may have been a high risk agency. I don't remember, but so we're providing additional technical assistance and support to them to make sure that they understand what the requirements are and can be compliant. It's not you're a bad agency or you're a bad actor. It's that you need more technical support, or you might need more terms and conditions in your grant so that you can be compliant. It's more about getting them. It's not a high risk in terms of like they're a bad actor. It just means if that helps clarify.
We use the tool simply to help us prioritize who we should start with first, to be able to provide more TA and a runway for proactive actions, knowing that there would likely be a bit more work in TA on the front end. So it didn't imply other than to anything, I think, in this presentation, other than to let you know that we've gone through that first phase, that we did anticipate needing a bit more work. And Esteban will actually share back some trends that we found within those and some common findings in a future slide. Thank you, Heidi.
Thank you, Heidi. Right, can you go to the next slide, please, Shannon?
Sure. I just wanted to make sure that Eric, I see your hand is still raised. Did you have another question about this slide?
No, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
No problem.
All right, so just to clarify, this is a grant-specific monitoring process, as Heidi and Rocio mentioned, and that is modeled after the existing triennial process we currently have. And the reason we are doing desk reviews of this specific grant is because of the additional oversight requirements for federally funded grants. All right, so these are the steps created for the desk review process. So we created this kind of like 7-step process And the first step is actually the grantees submit the requested documents. So selected grantees are asked to provide certain documentation. So that a desk review can be completed to determine if the grantee is in compliance with the grant terms. Then the second step will be staff review and submitted documents and make test selections. Once the documents are submitted, staff review the documents and complete the document submission checklist for each organization. From the submitted documents, staff will make selections for testing areas such as cash receipts, accounts payable, payroll, clients, etc. Then the staff send the request for selections to test each agency, and then we do the testing. Step 3 is complete the selection testing and review of all the documents submitted. So once the test selections are returned, staff complete the fiscal monitoring sample transaction testing workbook for each agency, review the internal control questionnaire we provide them for any deficiencies, and if necessary, we reach out to the organization with questions regarding testing documents or clarification of internal control processes. Next slide, please. Right, then step 4, staff write a desk review report. So State Bar staff prepare a desk review report detailing any findings of not compliance based upon the review of the documentation. If there are significant findings, schedule a meeting with the organization staff to discuss. The desk review report is reviewed and approved for distribution to the grantee by the program director. In this case, is actually Rocio. Step 5, if applicable, organizations provide a corrective action plan or CAP. For agencies with findings, they are asked to submit a CAP to the State Bar, detailing the actions they will take with expected date of completion to resolve the findings. Step 6, if applicable, staff review and approve the CAP. Staff reviews the CAP and determine if the plan is sufficient to resolve the findings and provide necessary technical assistance to the organization as needed. Review resolution dates to ensure they are actually reasonable. And step 7 and final step. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we're in the correct slide. And staff will follow up. If applicable, the staff will follow up to ensure resolution of findings. And then staff will follow up with the organization to verify that the CAP has actually been completed as planned. Next slide, please. Any questions with the steps?
Yeah, I have one real quick. Did you actually find out that those organizations rated as high risk, were they more likely to require a CAP?
I don't think we did actually that specific, kind of like analysis.
And we haven't
But
completed them all yet.
we haven't made all of them yet, actually. So we're still in the process to review all the the testing documentation and write the reporting and everything. So we're not at that point yet, and we can actually give you those type of metrics. But I will certainly keep it in
I do
mind
think the
to include
testing
it.
though is not surprising that we are finding along the way. So I do think a large percentage of those high risk orgs are ending with a CAP.
Thank you, Heidi.
Yeah.
All right, so finally, the status update on this process. Currently, 32 organizations that were classified as high or medium risk are undergoing desk review monitoring process together with other three low risk agencies as part of their annual monitoring visit. Of those 35 agencies, 12 have successfully completed the desk review without any findings. However, for the remaining, the most common findings are actually the two that I have outlined here in the slide. The first one is functional timekeeping, meaning the time and effort records were not maintained for the grantee staff working on the grant. And second, if insufficient cost allocation. So a review of the cost allocation methods revealed that the personnel expenses, both direct and indirect, charged to the grants are based on estimated percentages of the time worked for each staff member. There is no documentation to support either the actual time work on the grant or the services provided to clients. As such, State Bar staff is not able to determine if the expenses are allowable. So currently, staff is reviewing caps provided by grantees to determine if the plans are indeed sufficient and reasonable to comply with the grant requirements. And the most common solution we had actually found from that have been proposed by grantees is actually consisting them and then providing documentation to retroactively support timekeeping and cost allocation of the grant, and a plan to start allocating direct and indirect expenses separately for the HB3 grant. And that's it. Any other questions?
I'll just add a quick note on this. Thank you, Esteban.
Sure.
For these common findings, our office is working to find an external facilitator and trainer to help offer what we hope to offer to these grantees is a little bit more TA about how to correct for these two findings, since we are seeing so many who maybe had this their first time having a federal grant. So that's an added piece that, in addition to the one-on-one TA that our fiscal staff is, that our fiscal team is providing, we do want to offer that as well. And should be in the next couple of months. We're working on that.
Thank you, Rocio. Any questions?
Okay, and you said that was your last slide, correct?
Yes, correct.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thanks, Esteban. So, Jim, that brings us to the end of the materials for this meeting.
Yeah, great. Any other comments from members? Questions? No, well, thanks for a great presentation, Esteban. Jennifer, thanks as always for thorough work and my annotated agenda provided.
No problem.
Okay, and we'll see you guys later. See some of you on Friday, bank grants, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Jim.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Appreciate
everyone.
it.